Here we are in front of one of my magnificent dragon fruit plants. These have certainly got to be one of the easiest things you can grow in the garden. They're almost indestructible. The only thing they really hate is frost. They need half to full sun to grow well, and some support. I'm going to go right through the ins and outs of growing dragon fruit with you. I'll see by the end how easy it is to do and what a fantastic, easy, versatile crop they are. Well, it's mid-March and the dragon fruit are going crazy. This is one of the beautiful dragon fruit flowers that opened up last night. Only open up for one day, I should say a night and part of the next day, and they'll close up. Here you can see some more flowers that are about to come out. This one will definitely come out tonight. This one probably tomorrow night. Here's a couple of dragon fruit that the flowers came out probably about a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago. Here's some that are getting closer to starting to ripen up. See, there's a faint change of colour on this guy. It's probably about a week to a week and a half away from being ready. So we've got dragon fruit at all different stages. Here's another beautiful flower. Normally there's lots and lots of bees and native bees around. They're a bit quiet this morning, it's a little bit cooler. Hello Stan, you like the dragon fruit? Alrighty. You see my dragon fruit plant is a little bit wild. Grow it up over these wooden supports. This is old sleepers out of the garden, some old banksia trees that washed up on the beach. Dragon fruit like to get their roots right into these bits of timber. Here we got my yellow dragon fruit. This will be quite a while before these are ready. Have a little close up of this fruit. You can see the horrendous spines on it. You've got to keep yourself away from these. They're like a prickly pear. They'll stick into you and you won't be able to get them out. These turn yellow when they're ready to eat, and you use a heavy glove and a brush to brush all the spines off before you pick them and try to get in and eat them. You want a beautiful flavour of the yellow dragon fruit. A little more slender the cactuses. Well, just checking out the garden after we've had 1.1 metres of rain in just over a week. This is my dragon fruit, my red dragon fruit plant. As you can see, it seems to have handled the rain pretty well. These are the flowers that came out about 2 or 3 to 4 days ago. This one probably from 2 nights ago. You can see lots of fruit. We've got one just here that's just starting to ripen up. We give another 2 days, that'll be ready to harvest. I'll have to harvest them pretty early, as soon as they go red, because when they've had this much rain on them, they have a bit of a tendency to split. Doesn't affect the flavour of the fruit, but it means that you can't keep them for quite as long. These stalks that you can see are the old flowers. It's good to leave these old flowers intact if you can, because it stops the fruit fly from getting into the end of the fruit and laying eggs. This one's fallen out. It's not a big problem. The fruit flies don't get into them until the fruit's actually ripe. So if you pick them and refrigerate them, no problems. Here's my younger dragon fruit plant. This one is about 2 years old and it's taking off very nicely. I should get some fruit from this one next year. As you can see, I'm going to get a lot of fruit. We are in the end of March and I'll still keep getting fruit from this one till about June. I just see if I can see any brand new little buds coming out, which I can't. Once you stop seeing those little buds, you know that what you've got is what you're going to get for the season. The yellows are still hanging in there very well. There's a slight colour change on this one. Take a very long time for the yellow ones to ripen up, but it's worth the wait because the flavour's sensational. Look at those terrible spines. Got to brush them before you harvest them. You don't harvest them until they're fully there. The good thing about the yellows though is that they'll stay ripe for at least 2 months sitting on the vine and nothing will touch them with that natural protection that they've got. Here's my nice red dragon fruit plant. As you can see, I've got a few dog poo bags strategically scattered around. The reason for this is to stop the fruit bats, or the flying foxes, as they're more properly known, from getting in and taking my dragon fruit when they're ripe and ready to eat. So here's one that's ready to harvest today. Once they've started to turn red, it takes about 3 days to 4 days for you to be able to pick them. So this guy's nice and bright red, ready to go. So to harvest a dragon fruit, it's usually quite easily. Just grab the whole fruit down near the base, twist, easier with 2 hands, and off she comes. So there you've still got your base intact. There's your nice big beautiful dragon fruit. Alright, so I'll just put that aside for a second. We'll take the rest of our bags off. Here's a little triple header. These guys will probably be ready to harvest tomorrow, but if I leave them unprotected overnight, there's every chance the flying foxes will get into them. And once they discover that your dragon fruit are ripening, they will come every night. So it's important to protect them. I then take the bags off during the day so that they don't sweat. Here we are, one more to go. I'll reuse these bags, of course, tonight. If you're wondering, I buy these bags on eBay. Just look for dog cleanup bags. You can get a rolls of 200 or so. They're very, very handy for bagging fruit. You can use them for pawpaws, dragon fruit, anything else that the flying foxes are going to get stuck into. Here's another variety of dragon fruit. This one has a brown skin and a light purple flesh, and it's very sweet. It's got a very similar flavour to the yellow dragon fruit. So when you want to establish one, you simply take a cutting, plant it straight in the ground, or you can pot it up first, whichever you prefer. These guys are almost bulletproof. I think you would have to hold it underwater for 6 months to kill it. They really are that tough. These roots like to attach onto any bit of timber, so not treated timber, but any old sleepers and things like that. I'm using this old fence post as a support, and this dragon fruit is going to keep going up and up. It'll grow over the fence here, it'll grow along this railing as well. This is a 1 year old, and I don't expect to really get any serious fruit for another 2 years from this one. I'm looking forward to it because I know that they're very, very tasty. When you go to plant a dragon fruit, make sure that you get a cutting from a reputable nursery or someone that actually grows dragon fruit that can tell you that the fruit is very nice, because I have grown one that flowered well, and despite cross-pollinating with other varieties, I could never get any fruit to set. I finally got one to set and the fruit didn't taste very nice, so I spent about 4 years or 5 years growing that for nothing. So it pays to get a good plant to start with. If you want to take a cutting and growing, you can just cut straight here, plant that straight in the ground. You can leave that cutting aside for a couple of months if you feel like it, if you're not ready to go, but any cutting of the dragon fruit will grow. A good tip, if you're going to take a cutting and not plant it immediately, put an arrow facing down so that you know to plant this end and not plant this end, because that's one thing that they don't want to be, is planted upside down. Other than that, they just need a nice rich compost soil. They don't need an incredible amount of water, but they don't like to be dry either. They're not like a normal cactus that prefers to be really dry. They like plenty of fertilizer and a reasonable amount of water. When they're fruiting, you don't want to overwater them then, because that will make the fruit split. The only pest that the dragon fruit really affected by in this area is the fruit fly, which will occasionally get into them, but with the thick skin that they have, they're not too bad. Not compared to some fruits anyway. Here's to show you some roots that are starting to establish themselves into this timber. They'll grow right in any cracks. This is where these old sleepers that have got a lot of cracks in it are great, because the roots can get right in, get a lot of perches. When you water your dragon fruit in dry times, you can water the whole plant, because all of these roots will take up moisture and any nutrients. I'm going to propagate some dragon fruit today. Very, very easy to grow from cuttings. Absolutely the best way is to grow them from cuttings, because then you'll be guaranteed that if you've got the cutting from a good plant that produces good fruit, this plant will be identical to the parent plant, and you'll also have a plant that will produce good food. So what we do, here's a little trick to make sure that you don't plant your dragon fruit upside down. So here's the joint where we're going to cut the dragon fruit. I simply get this texture and I do a mark like that on it. That tells me after I've done all my cuttings to plant them that way down, because they really don't like to be planted upside down. You can see these very scrappy looking bits are getting in the way of the lawn mowing, so I'm going to take them off. You can grow dragon fruit from pretty much any sort of cutting. I could take one of these fantastic cuttings up here like this, but what I'd be doing is taking myself away the next crop of fruit, because a big one like this is going to be a really great fruit producer. Once the dragon fruit started to bend over and it stresses it a little bit, that's what causes them to flower and then set fruit. So all these guys that are bending over here like this, that haven't got any fruit on at the moment, this will be the source of next year's crop. And these little guys that you can see down here, like so, they'll be either next year or the year after, because dragon fruit can grow particularly quickly. And you see these gnarly old ones. Here's where there's some old fruit have grown out of this, and then a new bit of the vine has come out. Another one down here. So this was a magnificent producer. So these great big ones tend to produce better fruit. And then if you look at a little smaller one like this, still produces fruit, but this is about half the size of that fruit that I harvested this morning. And here we've got a nice robust one that set a lot of flowers, but because it's set 3 close together and they all produce fruit, the fruit will be a little bit smaller. Tastes exactly the same. In fact, sometimes I think they're even a little bit more convenient because you can just eat one in one go. So here we've got right through the stage, just not too far off from finished from flowering. This guy here probably needs 1 to 2 days. I won't leave them too long because we've had over 1 metre of rain, and if I leave them too long, we'll have split dragon fruit. But anyway, let's get back to the propagating. So here we've selected two pieces that we're going to use for cuttings. It's quite a simple matter, just giving them a clip, right like that, and like that. Oh, now you could plant them straight in the ground in some compost-rich soil and they will grow no problems, or you can pot them up. These two I'm going to just pot up. You don't need a big pot for them. It's very, very simple. Dragon fruit are almost like a weed. The only thing that a dragon fruit hates is frost. Just about anything else they can handle. They can handle very dry weather, they can handle very wet weather. But they grow best, of course, compost-rich soil, regular application of organic fertiliser such as a chicken manure pellet. They don't need any chemical fertiliser, they don't need any sprays. They do have a few funky looking things. You'll see this one here, looks like a bit of sun damage on it. Don't worry about that. They can look very, very ugly. Here you can see bits here that might even start dying back a bit. Don't worry about that. Internally through these structures, it's almost like a rope, and if you're trying to cut them, you'll know what I mean. And here's a really old bit of dragon fruit. It's very gnarly and very tough, woody sort of material. You can see the thickness of the connecting vine there. Alrighty, so the other thing that you need to grow dragon fruit is something to grow them on. So here I've got some old sleepers that used to be part of a retaining wall in the garden. I've fixed them in place, tied them to various other structures. Here's an old banksia tree that washed up on the beach. The reason I like to use timber that's not treated is because the roots of the dragon fruit will go in to the timber and grab onto it. Here you can see roots coming out. Those roots are going to grow towards that tree and they'll get set into the tree and provide support for the plant. Okay, we've got our 2 dragon fruit cuttings. As I showed you before, when we clip them at the joint here, we'll put this little arrow on the cutting, so that if you don't do it for a few days, because you can easily leave these guys sitting around for a couple of weeks before you pot them up, this will help you to remember. It's quite easy on these ones because they're only short, but if you're taking sections out of the middle of the dragon fruit plant, it can be a little bit trickier. So here we've got a nice compost-rich soil. Literally, all you do, a little bit of a finger hole, jam it in the right way, just firm up the soil a little bit around it. So that's probably in about 25 to 30 millimeters into the soil, just sitting there loosely, and that's it. That's a dragon fruit planter. So there's this size pot, And you can get away with a small little tiny pot like this. The dragon fruit are really not fussy. So in goes the end, like that. We'll just stuff it in like that. Bob's your uncle. So what'll happen, after a time, a little bud will come out here or here or here, one of these three sides, and it'll turn into a little section of dragon fruit. That's when you know that it's fully rooted. If you want to, you can plant these straight into the prepared bed, the final bed where the dragon fruit's going to go. They're really not fussy at all. So there you go. There's an easy way to propagate your dragon fruit. Like I said, make sure you always get a dragon fruit cutting from a plant that produces really good fruit. That way it'll be identical to the parent plant, and you're guaranteed in 2 to 3 years you'll start eating beautiful dragon fruit. Once you've potted up your little dragon fruit plants, just find a little space in the garden where you can tuck them away and pretty much forget about them. You really don't need to do anything to these guys for 2 or 3 months until that bud comes out and they start to grow, or you're ready to put them in their final position. They don't need much in the way of water. If it dries right out, it doesn't matter. If it gets too wet, it doesn't matter. As long as they're not sitting underwater, they'll be fine. So pretty much set and forget from here, and we'll come back and have a look at them in about 3-4 months time. Alright, now here's a dragon fruit I picked yesterday. You might be wondering the easiest way to get into a dragon fruit. You've got the end that was growing on the vine, and this end, just put your finger in here, pull back the skin, pull the skin right off. Look at that vibrant purple colour. Don't be alarmed the next morning if you've been eating this dragon fruit. You will see the dye the day after. You're not bleeding out. Okay, there we have a beautiful dragon fruit. Just like this, this. It's almost a texture like a kiwi fruit. Slice, slice, slice. That'll probably do me. This I'll just put back in a bowl in the fridge. Always get a little bit left over in here. Scrape that out. That's it. All of this will go in the compost. Grow more beautiful veggies.